Thank you, Mr. Olive, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Castro.
Thank you, Chairman. I have in the past supported sanctions against the Maduro regime because, as Mr. Meeks mentioned, I do believe in many ways that Mr. Maduro has oppressed his people. At the same time, I believe that the role of the United States is to promote democracy, freedom, and human rights around the world. The role of the United States is not to handpick the next leader of Venezuela. And Mr. Abrams, I have a question for you. My question is whether you're aware of any transfers of weapons or defense equipment by the United States government to groups in Venezuela opposed to Nicolas Maduro since you were appointed Special Representative for Venezuela.
No.
And I want to be respectful of you, but also honest. The reason that I asked that question, there's been a McClatchy News report of such an incident. Are you aware of that news report?
Saw the report, yes.
I asked this question because you have a record of such actions. In Nicaragua, you were involved in the effort to covertly provide lethal aid to the Contras against the will of Congress. You ultimately pled guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress in regard to your testimony during the Iran-Contra scandal. So I ask you the question, can we trust your testimony today?
Well, you can make that decision for yourself, Mr. Castro. I can tell you that the answer to your question is no. It's a simple and unequivocal no. There's been no such transfer of arms.
I also want to ask you, I mentioned the promotion of democracy and the fact that the Venezuelan people have to pick their own leader. What is the administration's strategy for encouraging elections as soon as possible in Venezuela?
Well, that is the heart of, really, of administration policy. That is, after the Maduro regime, a short transition to an election. And that's the view of all of the 51 nations that are supporting Mr. Guaido. I completely agree with the way you started. It's not for us to choose the next president of Venezuela. It's for Venezuelans. We can help, as a lot of other countries can help, in facilitating a free election because there's a lot of experience. The National Democratic Institute, International Republican Institute, Freedom House, and equivalents in a lot of other countries are really quite good at giving assistance.
Also, I know that you've spoken about the fact that, or you mentioned that all options are on the table. And in a private setting, we had a conversation about that, which I won't get into.